how are you? Ah, wow, this is amazing. Thank you, so are you. My name is Azie Tesfai. I am an actress, and I founded a give back charity based accessories and jewelry line called Fortuned Culture. I was trying to think about what I wanted to talk to you guys about today because there were numerous topics that I've been wanting to share with people. And I came up with what's important to me specifically, and I guess the title of this talk would be Passion versus Purpose. Not passion and purpose, but passions versus your own personal purpose in this life. So before I start that, I want to give you a little context of who I am and my story. I'm Eritrean, and I tend to get the same faces that I'm getting now when I say that. People have no idea where that is. Eritrea is my first time using PowerPoint, so let's see how this goes. Look at that. Eritrea is a tiny, tiny, tiny country, Northeast Africa. It's just east of Ethiopia, west of the Red Sea, west of Saudi Arabia and Yemen, and that's where I'm from. I'm first generation American. My parents are immigrants that came to this country, essentially coming from war. They both came here on educational scholarships, but they left for a better opportunity. To give you some context, my mom applied for a nursing scholarship in Ethiopia, right next door where she grew up with my family, and over 5,000 women applied. 3 were allowed to get into this nursing program in Nashville, Tennessee, and my mom came in 4th. A week before these women were supposed to leave, one of them found out that she was pregnant. The last minute, they asked if my mom wanted to join. And that's how my mom came to this country, and I was able to be born in the United States. If that doesn't seem crazy enough, I'm just going to give you, just globally, that's where I'm from, on a huge perspective and a huge map. So being first generation, I talk about that a lot, and I think it's really important, not just in our current political climate with this idea of immigrants in this country, which I won't go into, but I think that it is the beautiful thing about America is that it's built on immigrants. Whether you came from somewhere else, whether you're like me and you're first generation, whether you're 20 generations removed, everybody comes to this country and your heritage, everybody before you came for a better opportunity. So I joke that the immigrant struggle is once you come here, you want your children to do better than you. So I had 3 choices going to college. I could be a doctor, I could be a lawyer, or I could be an engineer. Those are kind of like the safety plan career choices. When your parents escaped war and left their home and their family, you kind of have to do something nice and better than them. I can't stand the sight of blood. I'm really, really bad at math. And I like to talk a lot. So I was like, I'll be a lawyer. That feels like that's my only option. And I find it interesting, as a girl growing up and being told that that's what I was supposed to do with my life, I think your environment and your family and your friends, in good and bad, can really influence what you think your passions and purpose in life are. So I'd been told my whole life that I was going to be a lawyer, so that permeated my spirit and my soul and made me believe that that's what I wanted. Until my last semester of college, I interned with an entertainment lawyer, and I realized day 2 that this, no offense to any entertainment lawyers, was the worst job that I could ever have for myself. And I met my first crossroads of my life. Do I keep going down this path that I had committed all of college, all of my educational life, I was ready to go to law school, or do I stop because I know this isn't the thing that makes me happy? Now, I think we all have these moments, right, where we've worked so hard towards something, we've been at our job for so long, we've been in this relationship for so long, we've put so much into whatever it is that we can't turn back, even if it's not what we know is meant for our legacy in our life and our future. But I challenge you to, in those moments, take the other path. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I told my mom I'd finished college and I was going to take a couple years off. She said as long as you went to law school in a couple years, then she'd be fine with it. And in that time, I discovered acting, and I really fell in love with it. And I was fortunate enough pretty quickly on to know that this was my purpose, my passion. And I loved it so much. I say, especially the last couple of years, being on a series pretty consistently, I have moments of what I call magic, and I think that's when you get to do your passion, and you feel so connected that you know that you're supposed to be doing this thing and there's a peace that comes over you. And it's rare, but those are the moments where you know you're living in your passion. And it doesn't have to be a career, it can be a hobby, it can be any number of things that really make you feel at peace, right? So I found my passion. It was a very tumultuous relationship, still is, my acting career. But my mom realized very quickly that this really was my passion, and she decided to support me. It was expensive, I took classes, I got a lot of rejection and a lot of no's, but I stuck with it, and in my mind, I had written down my dream job, right? So my dream job was, it doesn't maybe make sense, but this is what I at the time had written down. I wanted to work in Vancouver. I wanted to work with very specific people. I wanted to play a certain type of character. Pretty soon after writing these things down, and the list was very detailed, I got a pilot that checked off all of those things. And it was shooting in Vancouver. I went for a month, and it was like the best job. And then I had my first couple days off after a month in. And I was walking to the movie theater, and it started raining, which is like the most dramatic part of the story I know. It's like cinematically like what you would expect. I didn't have an umbrella because I was halfway there, and it's Vancouver, and it just rains randomly apparently. And I was like soaking wet, and I just started crying. And I couldn't stop crying. And I called my best friend who had been a child actress, and I thought, I feel so bad about not being grateful for getting what I had sacrificed so much for. What's wrong with me? And she said, I thought this might happen. You got the thing that you always thought you wanted, and it didn't make you happy, right? And I think a lot of us experience this. We say, when we get this job, or when we find this life partner, or when we lose those 10 pounds, I'm going to be happy, grateful, successful, satisfied, and that never happens, right? The joy is supposed to be, and the gratitude in the moment that you're in. So that was my second crossroads. I could keep going on this path of acting, which I had booked a big pilot at the time, so I could use that momentum, or I could stop and figure out what this gaping hole was in my heart. Like, I was really sad. And I don't want you guys to think that these crossroads that I'm talking about don't come with repercussions, because they do. At the time, all of my reps dropped me. I was not able to go on auditions. I had essentially thrown my career away by saying I wanted to go away for a while. I went back to Ethiopia, stayed with my mom's side of the family, and volunteered at a nonprofit school there. The school has the poorest children in Ethiopia. One day, the founder came to me and said that their meal program was getting pulled. And just to give you some context, a couple days before, I had met a little girl who looked a lot like me. And she had taken a fourth of her meal and put it in a napkin. And I said to them, is the food here that bad? Because we should really do something about it. You know, she's 5 years old in kindergarten and she doesn't want to eat it. And they informed me that at 5 years old, she would take a fourth of her meal every single day, enough to satisfy her hunger pains so she could learn to read and write, and then take the rest home so that her mother and father and brother could eat that day. And that broke my heart, that a 5-year-old would have to be responsible for their parents eating and surviving. So I came back home and I thought, I think I just found my purpose. I'm from LA. I'm also from this part of the world. I can raise money and save this meal program. Now, if you know anything about fundraising, it's really hard to ask people for money just outright. They usually don't want to do it. If they do it, it's a one-time thing, and then they don't answer your calls ever again. Or they don't think that anything under $100, $500, or $1,000 is a real donation. And I try to convey to people that $10, $20, $30, when you think about the monetary conversions of a dollar and a birr, which is the Ethiopian monetary system, is a lot. And then the cost of food and supplies there is a lot smaller as well. But people don't want to give that. They feel strange giving $20. They feel embarrassed. And so I was meeting a wall of after months not raising any money. I get a phone call from my girlfriend, who I'd made a necklace for because I like making jewelry. It's something fun. And her friend wanted the same necklace for her birthday. And I said, if it's okay with you, I'm going to charge you $30, and it's going to give 65 meals for one child at the school that means so much to me. And she said, yeah, that's fine. Could you write a note saying that that's what it's doing and put it in a little bag so I can give it to her? And I did. And the next day, I got an email from her friend saying, this was the best gift I've ever gotten. Can I buy 6 more? And I thought, maybe I could make jewelry. Maybe this is the thing. And so I made this first bracelet, which is a health bracelet. It says health in Amharic, which is the language in Ethiopia. Super simple, right? There was a need that I wanted to meet. I made a very simple product. One size fits all, men and women, anyone can wear it. Within a month, I had sold enough bracelets to feed every single child in that school breakfast and lunch for a full year. And it was the easiest thing I had ever done. So I had found my passion that was acting that was so hard and was met with so much resistance. I worked, but it was not regularly. And this was so easy. So then the founder, he was as shocked as I was, and he was like, well, we need some books. And I was like, all right, I'll make a wisdom bracelet. I didn't know what I was doing. And I made that bracelet, and that sold out. And then a couple months later, I got a call from Tom's Shoes saying, hey, a lot of people over here are wearing your 2 pieces. And we think we want to bring you on to sell your products on our site for holiday. I went in and I met, and they wanted to go over my business plan, and I said, I make it in my living room and I give everything away. And they were like, well, what about, I'm gonna go online, I'm probably gonna get in trouble. But they're like, well, what about your taxes? And I was like, well, I just give it all away. I don't know about that. And they were like, all right, well, you're gonna have to start paying taxes on this, and we wanna bring you on. And so I went from making a couple hundred pieces to my first order from Tom's being 12,000 pieces of jewelry. Thank you. And I had no means to do this because I was making it myself. So through a series of events, I figured out, you figure it out as you go, right? You follow your heart, you follow the need, and it kind of just grows. Through that, I was able to bring on a incredible orphanage in Mexico. And I started working with them. And they really brought me my next lesson, which was, I was like, great. I have this big order. I'm going to help you guys out. I think this organization's incredible. You need school supplies, books, and uniforms, right? And the founder was like, no, we need baby diapers and supplies for the young newborns that are dropped at the door of the orphanage and left by themselves. We need a safe way to school for the kids in Tijuana that just want to go to school without having any harm done to them. We need water. And I thought, I found my purpose. What I thought was because of my culture. But my purpose in service is listening to what people need. And that moment was an eye-opening moment for me because I think people always ask, like, what can I do? And I think that in your day and in your life, every single moment, there are moments where you can be of service. You just have to be still and listen. And it could be something as small as a smile or buying somebody a cup of coffee, to starting your own brand that is able to be self-sustaining and hopefully help people in need. So while I was in Mexico and learning to listen, I'd met a young girl named Lupita. Lupita was left at the orphanage with her little brother. They found her with no papers. Her mother, they assumed, was in an abusive relationship and was probably going to come back for them, which unfortunately she never did, and they don't know what happened to her. I met Lupita, and she came up to me and she said, do you want to know what's so cool? I don't have a birthday, and neither did my brother, because they didn't have birth certificates. So I got to make up my own birthday. And I really like the holidays, so I made our birthdays at the end of the year. And she went on to how cool that was. And I just thought, this little girl that was left with nothing got to create her own life, and how excited she was. And so with listening to that, I designed something called the Rebirth Necklace. And I'm going to show you her story and then show you how listening and being open can create, hopefully, something beautiful in your own life.
Hola, me llamo Lupita, tengo 13 años. Cada persona que tenga esto tiene un mensaje bueno. Me emociona hacer que cuando pase algo negativo, yo hacerlo positivo. Quiero que mi hermano también sea algo en la vida y pues que triunfemos juntos.
So her and I together created something called the Rebirth Necklace, which is that. And Lupita wrote a little note that basically said, on your new journey, I wish you care and protection. And I wrote Rebirth in Spanish. We had it engraved on each capsule. Her note was inside. And we sold that as a way to give money to the teenage home for the orphans, which require the most amount of kind of attention because they're young girls, and making sure that they get a lot of love and go on to college and have careers. I say this because I think the story is really important in your service, right? I grew up in Los Angeles being East African. When I was a little child my whole life, I was made fun of from being from the place that you saw in infomercials that had children with extended bellies and flies around their face, knowing that the country I was from was so beautiful and so not what that image was. And so I wanted to raise funds in a way that showcased the beauty of these people in this place. And there is no hierarchy, right? If you're giving it to someone else who needs the same thing you do: love, wisdom, health, rebirth, protection. And then that's going to go on and they're going to give it to somebody else. And guess what? There's a point where you're going to need something as well and someone will provide it to you. It's this idea of give and get, and that we're all one connected world. So then my last and third crossroads came a year and a half into Fortune Culture. I had big vendors on. I was in over 200 boutiques in a year, all word of mouth. I was doing 4 collections a year, and it was taking up a lot of time, and I now had 7 charities and thousands of women and children that I was supporting that started with that one bracelet. It was amazing. To be very honest, and maybe it's a bit taboo and it doesn't sound so appropriate, but I wasn't happy in that either. It's like, I can't win. Why am I such an unhappy person? But I realized something. I had found my purpose in this and in being of service. I had found my passion in acting. But they were 2 very different things. And I had only been exposed to people, that had founded these incredible companies like a 1-for-1 shoe company or 1-for-1 food company or employing women in Ghana or backpacks for education. And all of these friends of mine had these companies that they loved and was their passion and was their purpose, and they were being of service. And that wasn't my story. And then I thought, what about all those people that work 9-to-5 jobs, that have children and a wife and a family to support, and they don't feel like they're living in their purpose? And I thought, it's interesting because with passion, we tend to fill that part of our lives, right? With hobbies. If you love photography and you have a 9-to-5 job, you kind of do it on the weekends. If you like to play tennis, you get that in 4 times a week. The fulfillment of that side of your heart tends to happen. But what doesn't happen is the fulfillment of the purpose and the service side. Because it feels like if you can't do it on such a grand scale, then there's really no point. So I was like, I'm gonna go back to being an actor, and I'm gonna run this company at the same time, which was really hard. I started off slow, and I recorded on a show, but I had a very small part, and then my pretty quickly first job back was Jane the Virgin, and I realized, yeah, it's a good show. And I realized that doing 2 things at one time is really hard. This is my dressing room table. I took a photo, and it was my lines, my sides, some bags, some jewelry, and like script. And that kind of was my life. I work with one actor on the show a lot, and he would want to run lines, and I would be like, awesome, let's run them. Can you grab a bag and a tag and that shipping envelope over there? And just like while we're talking, I got to ship out those 50 orders. Can you just work? Which is like funny and fine in the end because it was doing really good, but I wasn't getting a lot of sleep. But for the first time in my entire life, I felt happy. And I felt like I had found the balance of like following my passion, which was creating and being an artist, and then being of service to women and children whose stories mattered so much and were very similar to my family's story. So I invite you guys to, within your own life, find moments in your community where you can be of service. You have the passion covered. Let's look at the purpose. For example, you don't have to, when I first started, I wasn't on a show and I wasn't working as much as I am now. I had reached out to the Honest Company, and I said, hey, my orphans in Mexico need some diapers. I don't know anyone there. They were brand new at the time. They were like less than a year old. And they're like, cool, we'll send you some. I opened my door the next day thinking I was going to get a couple diapers, and that's what the front door of my house looked like. My mailman, the FedEx stopped us up, my mailman knocked and was like, you're going to have to do something about this situation because this is a fire hazard. So I called some of my best friends over. We moved it into a U-Haul. I'd also emailed my girlfriend who worked over at Rachel Zoe's company, and I'm like, hey, I got an email saying that the kids that are graduating, going to high school, and going on job interviews, the girls need clothing, right? Because these orphans are going up against girls that feel confident in what they're wearing, and they don't. And confidence is so much of that. They'd worked their whole lives getting A's and good grades, and they deserve, like a nice blouse and some good shoes, and they'd asked for some jewelry, and I normally don't give my jewelry as part of it. I usually just give the monetary donation. But I gathered my friends, And we went down, and this had nothing to do with fortune culture. We just heard a need, and I took 4 of my friends that had never been down to Baja, Mexico, and this is what we did.
We're here in Tijuana, and this isn't just a normal fortune culture drop. We're getting these kids much needed diapers and baby supplies. So, come on.
And that had nothing to do with being on a television show or having a company. That was me and a couple of my friends that blindly asked people we didn't know who all met our demands and our requests, and sent some clothing for the girls, and that was only part of it. We had baby supplies that we had to put in storage for them. And so I challenge you to make sure in your life that you have a passion that brings you joy. And within that, to look at the other side of your life and think, what's my purpose? We're all going to die. As horrible as that sounds, it's true. Trying to be uplifting. But what's my legacy going to be behind? You get one life, right? We all want to leave something behind. And it doesn't have to be something like this. You can have a child and go volunteer at a food bank, at a homeless shelter, at a domestic violence shelter. And that's not going to affect those women, but influence your child as well. And so let's really take the time to develop the purpose side of our life and live a full and balanced life together. Thank you.